Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm continuing my series today on the Stampin' blends, and today I want to talk specifically about the color lifter. A few things you need to know about the color lifter so that you can use it in numerous ways. It's called a color lifter, but what it actually does is it moves the color. And I'll show you what I mean in just a few minutes. So I've got several different techniques to show you on how it can be used, but let's start with the most basic. I've already colored in a leaf, and this is from Vintage Leaves, and I used a combination of colors that are in the Stampin' blends. Don't be afraid to layer color on color till you achieve the density and the tones that you're looking for. But I want to lighten up the center vein of this leaf to make it look a little bit more realistic. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my color lifter. Now there's a brush tip and there's a fine tip, and I'm going to use the brush tip for this. So I'm going to come first of all straight down the center, and I know you can't see it when you do it. That's the one thing about the color lifter. It's going to take 15 to 20 seconds for that alcohol in the lifter to process, to actually lighten up the paper, but I think you can actually see it happening as we're watching. You can go back over it as many times as you want. I'm just going to encourage you to make sure that you wait to allow it time to process. Now, shading with them is awesome, but you're going to want to make sure you do it correctly. What you don't want to do is scribble, because that's actually what you're going to get. And when I mentioned to you that it's actually a color mover versus a color lifter, that's exactly what it's going to do. If you place the brush tip down and you hold it, you're going to see it dissipate. You're actually going to see it move away from the area you're holding it, and that's because of the alcohol. So what I like to do is I like to take it and I like to brush with it. So you see I'm holding it from the center and I'm flicking out. What that's going to do is as it begins to process, it's going to actually make it lighter there. So you can actually see that the tone is going to start to lighten up. And again, don't be afraid to go over areas as often as you like. Now let's say I want the outside area lighter. We would do the same thing. Turn your paper. There's no contortionist coloring. That's not easy. So come on in from the outside in and flick. So you're brushing. So the heaviest amount of the lifter is going on the outside of the image. And you can see as the paper begins to process how it starts to lighten up the edge. The lifter will pick up some pigmentation when you're working over color. So I always recommend that you clean the tip off on your scratch paper to make sure that any color from your previous project doesn't get carried over to the next one. And of course, always cap it tightly with that click when you're finished. So that's one way, and that's obviously the most common way. Let's talk about fixing mistakes. Here I've got an image that I colored using the old olives and the dark cherry cobbler. Do you see how I've gone outside the line right here at the bottom of the frame? I want to fix this. And again, this is where the color mover technique comes in. Imagine you've got a bowl of water in front of you and you put your finger in it. What's going to happen is you're going to have a ripple effect. Well, the same thing is going to happen with the color lifter. When you put it down, it's actually going to dissipate or move the ink. So when you're correcting little boo-boos like this, it's best to start further away from it so that it seeps in. If you work right on that stamped line, you're going to find that the color lifter actually penetrates into the color of your image. I recommend the fine tip, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. And I like either small circular motions or back and forth motions. But you see how far away I am? And you see what's happening? As the paper becomes wet, you're going to see that it actually moves in. You want to make sure that you're far enough away where the alcohol from the lifter will blend in. And that's going to help fix all those little mistakes for you. That's way number 2 with the color lifter. The color lifter will also lift color, and I like to use the brush tip for this. So I've colored in just the center of my little elf here, and I've got a finished one of him to show you in just a minute. But I want to shade out the center of that sign to make this almost look like there's highlights down the middle. So I'm going to use the brush tip because it's nice and broad. I'm going to turn it slightly to make it comfortable for my hand. And I'm going to come right across here, and I'm going across the whole image. All right, and remember how we talked, it's going to take 15 or 20 seconds for this to actually penetrate and process the paper. Now while it's still damp, I can go back over it, and I'm going to highlight the center even more because I want the center of this image actually to be quite a bit lighter than the outside edges to give it some shading. All right, that's going to take a few seconds to dry, and this is one I've done ahead of time. You can see here how I've got a little bit of gray around the outside, but my center is actually very light to create a credence of a shadow. All right, the last thing I want to teach you is how to create patterns. So I've used the umbrella from the Weather Together stamp set, and I know that the stamp set actually has textured layers that can be stamped over the top. But what if you want a design that's not part of the stamp set? Well, the color lifter can do that for you. Color in the image solid with a dark marker of your choice, and I'm actually going to use the fine point tip. Now I'm not going to do the whole thing, I'm just going to give you an idea. I have other finished samples to show you. What if I want my stripes to go down? So I'm going to actually start drawing them. I'm going to use the fine tip and I'm going to draw them in. Now you're going to have to be patient as the paper processes through the color. And you're also going to need to go back over it again to create more density. Can you see it start to change as we wait? And then I'm going to go back over it again, and you can see the lines so you can easily trace them. The slower you go, the actual better that it works because it's actually moving the color. Remember we talked about that. When you're at home and you're practicing with your Stampin' Blends and you use your color lifter, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean by actually moving the color. So again, make sure you clean off your tip before you go to another project. You don't want to transfer any of that blue over to a different project. So here's one I've done. I did polka dots in the center, and I actually did stripes on the outside. So let me show you about the polka dots. You want to preserve the tip on the fine points. You don't want to smash it. You want to just place it and hold it. And again, if you're at home and you try this, you're going to see how the alcohol dissipates. So place it and hold it. And just like the stripes, you can go back over them when they're almost dry or dry and make them lighter. So you can see as time goes by, you can see that those actually become lighter circles. Again, I'm going to clean off my tip before I put it away and then make sure it's capped tightly. Here are a couple others that I did. This one is a plaid, just to give you an idea of how that looks. And yes, it's going to create a real beautiful subtle finish. This one is from Smitten Mitten, and I colored the whole thing in with the dark cherry cobbler blends, and then I created a really fun plaid pattern on this using that fine tip again. And then finally, here's one with a little bit of polka dot. Look at that. I colored in the reindeer and I added 3 dots here on the tail area just to give that some definition. Whether you're highlighting or you're lifting away color, fixing mistakes, or creating patterns, you're going to find that the Stampin' Blends Color Lifter is really a fun tool. You can find the Stampin' Blends in my online store. I offer exclusive and generous online rewards. The information can be found on my blog. You'll find the link down in the description bar if you're here from YouTube to access that easily. Also, if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd be more than happy to send you the current catalog. Just leave me a comment. Thanks so much for joining me today, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.